A man posts a photo online. He checks it after 2 minutes. No likes. Again after 5. Again after 10. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a teenage girl changes the way she laughs depending on who she's around. An employee says yes to extra work he hates doing. A son spends his whole life chasing a career he never wanted. And none of them realize they're doing the same thing. They are searching for proof that they matter. Because validation is not just a social habit, it is one of the oldest survival instincts embedded into the human brain. And today, for the first time in history, billions of people are competing for it every single second. But here's the strange part. The more validation humans receive, the more addicted they often become to it. So why are we like this? Why can one compliment change our entire day, while one rejection can destroy our confidence for years? And at what point does the need for validation stop being human and start controlling us?
For most of human history, validation wasn't about ego, it was about survival. Early humans depended on tribes for food, protection, and safety. Being rejected by the group could mean death. So evolution shaped the human brain to constantly care about social approval. That's why rejection feels so painful, even today. Studies show the brain processes social exclusion almost like physical pain. Humans who paid attention to social acceptance were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. But now, this ancient survival instinct exists in a modern world where millions of people can judge us instantly through social media, likes, comments, and public opinion. A few decades ago, validation mostly came from family, friends, or the people around us. Today, it comes from likes, followers, comments, blue ticks, and even typing bubbles on a screen. Social media didn't create humanity's need for validation. It turned it into a non-stop system. Every notification acts like a small reward, triggering dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical, but it's actually more connected to anticipation and pursuit. That's why people compulsively check their phones.
But here's where it gets deeper. Humans don't only crave validation from others. They use validation to construct identity itself. Imagine a child drawing a picture. If the parent smiles and says, "That's amazing," the child feels pride. If the parent ignores it, the child feels uncertainty. Over time, humans begin learning who they are through reflected reactions. You're smart. You're attractive. You're annoying. You're talented. You're difficult. At first, these are just opinions, but eventually they become internal voices. Psychologists call this the looking glass self. We partially form our identity by imagining how others perceive us. In other words, many people do not actually know themselves directly. They know themselves through reflection. And this explains why criticism can feel so devastating. Because when someone attacks your work, appearance, personality, or intelligence, it doesn't feel like they rejected an idea. It feels like they rejected you.
Now here's the terrifying part. The human brain remembers negative validation more strongly than positive validation. One insult can outweigh 10 compliments. This is called negativity bias. Our ancestors benefited more from remembering danger than praise. Forgetting a compliment had no consequences. Forgetting a threat could get you killed. So today, one hateful comment online can dominate someone's thoughts for weeks, even if thousands of people supported them. This is why successful celebrities still feel insecure, why high achievers still feel empty, why attractive people still seek reassurance. Because validation has a dark secret. It expires quickly. The brain adapts. The compliment that once made you feel amazing becomes normal. Then you need another one, and another. Soon, people are no longer chasing happiness. They are chasing relief. Relief from feeling invisible.
And invisibility is one of the greatest fears humans carry. Because to the brain, being unseen can feel similar to being socially erased. This is why people interrupt conversations to tell stories, why some exaggerate achievements, why others become people pleasers, why some stay in toxic relationships. Even negative attention can feel better than no attention at all. A person who never felt emotionally seen as a child may grow into an adult who constantly seeks approval from partners, bosses, strangers, or audiences. Not because they are selfish, but because part of them is still asking one painful question. Am I enough now?
But validation itself is not the enemy. In healthy amounts, validation is essential. A child needs encouragement. A partner needs appreciation. A human being needs to feel understood. The problem begins when self-worth becomes fully outsourced, because external validation is unstable by nature. People change, audiences disappear, algorithms shift, relationships end. If your identity depends entirely on outside approval, your confidence becomes permanently fragile. That's why some people look confident in public, but collapse in private.
So how do people escape the validation trap? Not by pretending they don't care what anyone thinks. That's impossible. Humans are social creatures. We will always care to some degree. The real goal is balance. Healthy people use validation as information, not identity. They appreciate praise without depending on it. They listen to criticism without worshiping it. And most importantly, they learn something rare: how to validate themselves. Which sounds simple, but for many people it feels almost unnatural. Because self-validation requires sitting alone with your own mind, without applause, without reassurance, without external proof, and still believing your life has value. That is difficult, especially in a world constantly measuring popularity. So here are a few practical ways humans slowly regain control. First, notice where your self-worth comes from. Ask yourself honestly, if nobody praised this part of me, would I still do it? That question exposes hidden dependencies. Second, reduce unconscious comparison. Humans compare automatically, but social media creates impossible standards because you compare your ordinary life to everyone else's highlight reel. Third, build private victories. Do things nobody sees. Read books without posting them. Exercise without announcing it. Create things without needing immediate approval. Private effort rebuilds internal confidence. And finally, learn to tolerate disapproval. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will approve of your choices. That discomfort is part of becoming psychologically independent. Because maturity is not reaching a point where nobody dislikes you. It's reaching a point where disapproval no longer destroys your identity.
At the end of the day, every human being wants to feel seen. Seen by family, seen by society, seen by someone who says, "You matter." And maybe that desire never fully disappears. Maybe it's stitched permanently into human nature. But there's a difference between enjoying validation and needing it to survive emotionally. One gives warmth. The other becomes a prison. And perhaps the most powerful moment in a person's life is when they stop asking the world for permission to believe in themselves. Because the people who finally become free are usually the ones who realize this. Validation feels good, but self-respect lasts longer.
If this video made you think differently, like and subscribe.